From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the News 8 Daily 8 Podcast, a Wish TV News 8 update.
A deadly storm takes over Kentucky. How Hoosiers are helping rescue people in the storm's path.
A scramble at the State House as lawmakers are up against a deadline today. Why they need to get bills moving.
And protecting access. Why parents are asking lawmakers to better understand their children's needs at the State House today. Good morning to you. It is Monday, February 17th. We are so thankful to have you waking up for this right here on Daybreak. It's a cold one.
Yes. I've mentioned this all winter, but my car's been struggling.
Has it?
And every time we get some of these mornings, I'm like, is this going to be the one that? Is this going to be the one? Now, if people are like me, if you can get through this week, this could be our last Arctic shock of winter. So let's hope we can get through it. Wind chill values, though, are below zero. Basically everywhere this morning. Cameras around the state. We're looking at the interstates. I know Marcus will touch on this. The interstates have looked okay since basically yesterday. Yesterday morning was a lot different of a story, at least as we were waking up. Wind chill value of 9 below here in Indy, 13 below in Kokomo, and 10 below in Richmond. We'll expect similar wind chill values waking up even tomorrow morning. I know it's President's Day, so not everyone going into work for today. Storm tracker across the state. We had a couple of spot flurries in the early morning hours. Nothing left on that. Clear skies in place for us waking up. Now, as we go on through today, I do think clouds increase, and eventually we'll be at cloudy skies through the evening. Temperatures falling short of the 20-degree mark. Our average high for this time of year, 41 degrees. We're well below that for today. 18 here in Indy, 24 Columbus, 18 in Richmond, 16 in Muncie, and 23 in Bloomington. In addition to the colder air, something closely to watch through this week, major winter system is going to be developing. Winter storm watches are out for southern Indiana into Kentucky. Central Indiana is not included. This is going to be the type of winter storm where significant accumulations occur potentially along the Ohio River, and how much of that falls off into central Indiana, and what do we get? I'll have some of those answers coming up in my full forecast.
8:02, new on Daybreak. IMPD says it is investigating a homicide after a woman was found dead in her home. Police say they were called to the city's north side for a welfare check at North Park Avenue. That is when they found the woman. Police have not given us her name or age, and they tell us there is no information on any possible suspects at this time.
Our neighbors to the south are dealing with a true disaster. Emergency workers from Indiana are trying to help. This is what's left after intense weekend rain that swamped Kentucky, led to widespread flooding. Authorities report at least 9 deaths. They fear there will be more as searchers do their work. Indiana Task Force 1 says it sent 49 of its members to assist. The problems span the state, with rescues reported in counties in western and eastern Kentucky. President Trump has approved a disaster declaration for the state, part of a dual punch from the weather. Too much moisture for many and too much cold for all. Amy Kiley shows us the outlook and the specifics about the problems in Kentucky.
Your temperatures are certainly going to drop.
An Arctic blast could bring potentially record-setting cold to the U.S. this week. Forecasters say wind chills could hit -50 near the Canadian border over the next couple days and below zero in parts of Texas. They predict snow and wintry rain will push east from the plains tomorrow. It could hit areas still reeling from a deadly and historic weekend storm.
It's saving as many lives as we can. It's positioning our assets, our swiftwater boat teams, not just where flooding is happening, but where we know it's coming.
Kentucky has the highest death toll from the weekend weather. Video from that state shows floods submerging homes, businesses, vehicles, and roads. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear calls the storm one of his state's most serious weather events in at least a decade. He says the deaths include at least 1 child. Beshear credits emergency responders with performing more than 1,000 rescues in under 24 hours.
We'll move from the rescues themselves to going door to door in the flooded areas to make sure that everyone is okay.
Virginia, West Virginia, and Tennessee also are recovering from floods, and officials report more than 200,000 power outages in Alabama, Georgia, and West Virginia from the weather. Today, the storm is moving out, leaving behind inches or even feet of snow in the Northeast and parts of Canada. I'm Amy Kiley for Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook for updates.
5 minutes after 8 here in Indianapolis. Today is a pivotal one for lawmakers with a deadline hitting the State House calendar.
That's right. This is the last day for committee meetings, meaning we could see several bills die today. For that, we turn now to News 8's Britt Noble. Britt, what do we expect today?
Well, this deadline forces lawmakers to prioritize which bills to support this year. There will be a hearing today about a bill to annex several counties from Illinois. And House Bill 1662 would make it illegal for people to sleep in state parks, a bill criticized by advocates for the homeless. Also up for discussion today, property tax reform, birth control access, and the expansion of school vouchers and teacher pay. The American Heart Association is hosting an advocacy day to help schools and businesses create emergency response plans. 12 years ago, Julie West's 17-year-old son, Jake, died at football practice because of an undetected heart condition.
No doubt in my mind they will save lives of not only children, but anyone who steps onto the school grounds. Visitors, coaches, guests, grandparents, everyone will be protected. So this is why it is imperative that we get this bill passed.
Additionally, the Indiana Coalition for Public Education will demonstrate at the State House today to protest the diversion of taxpayer dollars from traditional public schools to charter schools. If a bill doesn't get a hearing by the end of today, it's essentially dead for the session, meaning it won't advance on its own. But lawmakers often find ways to include dead bill language as amendments to other bills later on. I'm Brittany Noble for Wish TV, wishtv.com. Follow us on Facebook for updates.
And the time now is 8:06. Also at the State House, advocates for the Autism Society of Indiana are set to meet with lawmakers today. As I-Team 8's Tim Spears reports, this comes as Indiana Medicaid is planning to change coverage of a popular autism therapy.
Indiana Medicaid is constraining coverage of applied behavior analysis, or ABA therapy. People using ABA will see weekly hours limited based on diagnosis. And ABA will only be covered for up to 3 years, with some exceptions. These changes are less severe than previous proposals, which made that time limit retroactive. Instead, the 3-year clock starts in April. Advocates consider that particular change a win, but are still pushing to protect access.
Yes, I love you.
Jana Titi's daughter, Raya, doesn't let autism slow her down.
She is the most curious, happy girl you will ever meet. She really wants to explore everything, as you can see here.
The 6-year-old is also blind in one eye. It's why she's fascinated with lights, even if it means pausing an interview.
She loves to see how they move, how they interact, how shadows work.
Instead of public school, Raya attends an ABA therapy center that helps kids with autism improve communication and development.
With the help of ABA, she's really starting to put together those social connections.
When the Indiana Family and Social Services Administration first proposed cuts to ABA coverage, Jana said she reached out to her local lawmakers, State Representative Hunter Smith and State Senator James Buck. She says neither responded.
I was really hoping that a dialogue could be created, and it was pretty disappointing.
We feel that a lot of lawmakers don't even know what autism is.
The Autism Society of Indiana is planning a day at the State House Monday so families can directly share their stories with legislators. Rachel Deaton says this year, much of the focus is on the future of ABA.
If a lawmaker understands what a parent is going through from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed and how much ABA is helping them, they might be willing to advocate for it.
The FSSA plans to place a 3-year cap on ABA coverage starting in April. It's trying to get spending under control after an audit found Indiana made at least $56.5 million in improper Medicaid payments for ABA over the course of a year. But the ABA cuts come as the Braun administration initiates a larger Medicaid crackdown, increasing eligibility checks, supporting legislation to add work requirements and enrollment caps, and even ordering providers to stop advertising Medicaid programs.
Our children are discriminated against every day.
John Lotz, whose own son Drake went through ABA, believes these changes are focused on regulating the patients rather than the providers.
You're not really going to hurt the centers because they're just going to readjust their business model to bring in more kids for fewer hours, and the ones that are going to get pushed out are the ones with the greatest need.
Now, Raya and children like her have 3 years to figure out whether they'll need to find options outside of Medicaid.
There is a specific time. There may be a time when ABA isn't required for Raya, but that is not that time yet. And just to say that an arbitrary 3-year mark for someone like Raya doesn't seem appropriate to me.
Those parents I talked to want access to be based on existing need, not how long a person has needed treatment. The Autism Society of Indiana will be at the State House from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., not protesting, but informing people how to advocate for policies. Tim Spears for Wish TV, wishtv.com, or follow us on Facebook for updates.
8-10 members of the United Auto Workers say they're ready to strike at Rolls-Royce if the two sides cannot reach a labor deal by next Wednesday. The more than 800 UAW workers who work at the Indianapolis company's Indianapolis facility make aircraft engines largely for government contracts. We reached out to the company. Statement from a spokesperson says we are focused on reaching an agreement that provides fair compensation, benefits, and working conditions while ensuring the long-term viability of Indianapolis component manufacturing. We'll stay close on the story as the deadline draws near.
This is the News 8 Daily 8 podcast, a Wish TV News 8 update on demand. For even more, on demand and on the go, connect with Wish TV on Facebook at wishtv.com and on the free Wish TV mobile app. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like, subscribe, and follow this podcast for updates every weekday morning on the All Indiana Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcast.